War Memorial of Korea honors those who fought to successfully protect South Korea from communist tyranny during the Korean War. In these cathedral-like halls are engraved the names of every soldier that gave their lives for the defense of South Korea. Some 152,279 names from the South Korean military are remembered in these sacred halls. Although called the Forgotten War in America, the names of the 36,574 American soldiers that gave their lives during the war are remembered here, honored by the state or territory they came from. The memorial also honors the 4,216 troops who were killed in action from nations that contributed troops and supplies through the United Nations, whose flag they fought under in the defense of South Korea. In all, 16 nations contributed their military forces, and another 41 nations sent equipment and supplies to successfully defend and preserve South Korea from communist invasion. It is perhaps one of the most sacred and solemn monuments here in South Korea.
Because of their sacrifice, South Korea has enjoyed the blessings of religious liberty, with Protestantism being the major church presence in the nation. One incredible war hero during the Korean War was not a soldier, but a medical doctor and a Seventh-day Adventist missionary named Dr. George Rue. Dr. Rue was born in Oakland, California, and graduated with high honors from Loma Linda University. In 1929, he began his ministry in Korea by establishing a small clinic that would later become Seoul Sanitarium Hospital and Nursing School. He would face tragedy when his first wife, Mabel, passed away with an illness and had to evacuate from Korea with the cataclysm of World War II.
Because Korea was then a Japanese colony, the Soviet Union invaded the northern part of Korea near the end of World War II and installed a pro-communist government led by Kim Il-sung. Meanwhile, the United States occupied the southern part of the nation, where South Koreans elected a pro-American government led by Syngman Rhee. The two superpowers agreed to divide the nation at the 38th parallel. During this time, Dr. Rue, now living near Los Angeles, made plans to return to Korea.
Remarrying with his new wife, Grace, he would return to Korea after World War II to help rebuild the sanitarium. While in a business trip in June 1950, North Korea invaded South Korea, beginning the Korean War, and the sanitarium was overtaken by communist forces. Korean Adventists, such as my father and his family, were forced to flee, hiding behind rocks and caves from communist forces. Providentially, the sanitarium building was saved when a ranking North Korean officer ordered it not to be destroyed because he was a former patient and held Dr. Rue in high esteem. When UN forces liberated the city of Seoul, Dr. Rue was just re-establishing his sanitarium when the communists retook the city for a second time. Relocating to the city of Busan, Dr. Rue arranged safe passage for Seventh-day Adventist refugees and other Christians, including my father, and some 5,000 Christians were saved from the fighting and relocated to Jeju Island. During the war, at the request of the United States and South Korean government, Dr. Rue would establish a hospital in Jeju Island, convert a warehouse in Busan as a hospital, and re-establish the Seoul Sanitarium as the base for operation for the medical work here in South Korea. Dr. Rue's wife, Grace, was a registered nurse that established an orphanage for Korean War orphans. During the operation of the orphanage, it served over 1,000 children, providing many with loving Christian homes. Dr. Rue and his wife would serve in Korea for 32 years. During that time, they would treat the lowliest of peasants to the highest of state, including the first Korean president, Syngman Rhee.
Dr. Rue's impact during and after the Korean War is significant. He literally saved the Seventh-day Adventist Church from being annihilated by North Korean forces when he arranged for the United States military to transport church refugees on a troop transport ship called an LST to safety to Jeju Island. And the nursing school that the Roos established trained thousands of South Korean Seventh-day Adventist medical professionals that have contributed to the medical ministry of the Seventh-day Adventist Church in South Korea and beyond. In fact, the Seventh-day Adventist Church today consists of a union of 699 churches and 261,154 members in South Korea. Seoul Sanatorium Hospital is now called Sahmyook Medical Center, serving 30,000 patients a year in the city of Seoul. The church also has a literature publishing house, plant-based health food factories renowned for its soy milk. The church also oversees a network of elementary and middle schools, along with 6 high school academies that provide a holistic Seventh-day Adventist education for the youth of South Korea, English language institutes, and Sahmyook University, where future Adventist pastors, medical professionals, educators, and other professionals are trained in a gleaming modern campus located in the outskirts of Seoul that consists of a global student body of 5,900 students. Dr. and Mrs. Roo are indeed missionary war heroes who were used by God to build a legacy of life.
Regardless of the politics behind the war, the sacrifices of the UN forces and missionaries like Dr. Roo allow South Korea to be a haven for religious liberty. Today, churches and temples dot the landscape of South Korea where people could worship freely. As various nations around the earth came together to protect the freedom of South Korea during the Korean War, so too God has a multinational, multicultural mission to preach the everlasting gospel to every kindred, tongue, and people. The mission of the church is to preach deliverance and freedom from the oppression of sin, to give freedom through the power and love of Jesus. Dr. Roo lived out this message in his work in South Korea. In reflecting on his missionary career, he wrote, "I have dedicated my life to the people of Korea. Healing the sick and caring for those who are less fortunate is part of the gospel. As a Christian, it is my duty to follow the example of Christ, who was also a missionary." 2,000 years ago, another medical missionary came from the nation called heaven to a war-torn world called earth. Leaving paradise itself, this medical missionary came to heal those that were suffering from the wounds of sin, from the great battle between good and evil called the Great Controversy. Today, Jesus, the ultimate medical missionary war hero, is seeking to heal and to restore. And once he heals and restores us, we too can be heroes in this war called the Great Controversy and agents of healing. Today, God is calling you and I to make a difference. Will you not heed the call today to be heroes in this war and to bring healing to humanity?